If I'm recording interface issues between my camera and my phone, which is controlling my camera. So we'll wait. In fact, I'm going to turn you off. Bye. Hello again, friends. Waiting for all the technology to catch up here and get started working on this wedding portrait. Looks like I'm broadcasting, so I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining me today. Turns out this particular wedding painting, I usually finish these at the reception. This painting evidently gets the record for the most time spent. For some reason, it just took me forever to get these faces right. And man, sometimes I don't make a habit of that. All right. Here's what the faces look like. I don't know how well you can see that. And here's what the paintings look like, because you're looking at an angle. I worked on her just for a few minutes ago, because there's nothing that helps get a portrait get a portrait right like a good night's sleep. So having not looked at it for a day, thanks, David. So here's what I'm going to do. And I want to talk about, as you see from the title there, painting. I use the terminology a lot. Many of you probably are never quite sure, what is that word he's saying? So there, I typed it out for you. It's a real word. Variegated. And a variegated object means it's got a lot of busyness in it. Okay? So there are a lot of objects in our painting world that are variegated. Things that are not variegated. Blue sky, gray sky, smooth things, smooth rock, smooth, I was going to say bottle of wine, but anyway, I'm just trying to think of things that are flat color. It's a silly example. Busy, variegated things are busy, okay? And I have a formula. Now again, every formula can be a dead end. You know, a rut is the grave with the ends knocked out. So you have to watch out for formulas, because they can hinder your creativity and hinder your growth, really, by trapping you into, oh, I know how to do that. I don't have to think, so to speak. So that's the wrong side of formula. The good side of formula is if you have a formula for everything, at least you have a starting point. And that's what I have for this. And again, I want to get you guys in as close as I can. It's a little bit of a challenge to share my space with you. But I'm going to talk about her right hand. I've got it roughed in here. And I'm going to be looking primarily at my phone. And by the way, just for what it's worth, this is not a commercial, but this is an Android. And at least until now, this is what an iPhone can't do. Okay, is zoom in like this. An iPhone goes about like this, and you're done. Okay, that's about how much an iPhone zooms in. But here's what a Droid does. Okay, so all the way from that to nearly the whole screen filled with nothing but her hand. So slight advantage there. And here's the formula. Here is the formula for painting a highly variegated object. The three-step process. Number one, paint the mid-tone, whatever the mid-tone of this object is. In this case, it's a mid-tone flesh. It's all over. Now, of course, right now I'm also doing some drawing. That is to say, I need to get the back of her wrist up high. It is her wrist, by the way, as you can see, it's her wrist that is casting the shadow on his neck. So it's very important that her wrist be in the correct position, or we'll be left with a visual mystery. What is it that's casting that shadow on his neck? So once we get this in place, we will be all set. Now again, my apologies to those of you who are good painters or followers of mine, because you'll be saying things like, hey, look how you're holding that brush. Look I've got a pinky to steady it. I'm holding it in the death control grip. And I just say, yeah, guilty on all charges. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Correct. There's a time and a place. Every rule can be broken, in my opinion. When you're doing portraits the size of a quarter, or no, the size of a nickel, smaller than your thumbprint. When you're doing portraits the size of your thumbprint, it's the time to throw out everything I say about the death control grip. And I really actually would be much happier painting with my left hand, but my left hand is quite busy holding up this phone, which has the photograph in it that I'm copying. So there you go. A whole list of, well, really what that's an example of. Again, every rule can be broken. You just need to know when to break them. Good to know the rule first. If you don't know the rule, you're probably just screwing up, as I always say. Okay, so step one is finished. Mid-tone over the whole thing. I'm going to clean this brush because I don't know if I'll be using it anymore. This afternoon, so that's a nice, pretty new brush from Silver Brush Company, my favorite brush, Silver Grand Prix. They just hang, last long. They hang in there. Okay, step one, mid-tone all over. Step two, dark details. It is real simple, by the way. Step one, mid-tone all over. Step two, dark details. Step three, light highlights. Okay, so I'm over here. I've got a much more refined brush now, and I'm going to start painting. Whoops, I better watch out because some of her face is still wet. This would be a good time for a mall, wouldn't it? Not a shopping mall, a painting mall. Little joke there. So small you can't really. It's not funny. So small it's not funny. Such a small joke, it's not at all funny. I didn't do it on purpose. Okay. So I've got a sort of a mid-tone. No. I mean, it's a dark, but it's not as dark can be. It's a medium dark, maybe a number 7 or 8 on my brush at the moment. I can come back and do dark or dark. So even though it's a 3-step process, mid, dark, light, the dark can be by degrees. That is a little bit dark, a little bit darker, a little bit darker. And likewise, the light can be by degrees. Lighter, 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 lightest. But it is a very handy formula. And please ask me, well, does it work if you do it the other way around? That is to say, does it work if you do mid-tone, then highlights, then dark details? And the answer is no. End of conversation. I'm not even explaining why, am I? I don't know if I want to get into it. The answer is just trust me. No, it doesn't. Now, none of this applies to watercolor. I am not talking like a watercolorist right now. I'm talking like a oil or acrylic painter, not like a watercolor painter. None of this applies to watercolor. In watercolor, everything is dark. There's no such thing as light, except, of course, for cheating with white highlights or opaque and so forth. Man, that feels to me like it's too large. Yeah, rats. I believe it is. So hang on. Stop the cameras. Stop the presses. Time for a little correction. I believe her hand is too large. And I made it too large the other day. So I'm going to carve some off her pinky here and make her hand shorter this way. And then carve some off the top. So I just mixed up a medium blue. I had some left over on my palette. Now I'm mixing up some dirty blue to darken this area right here. And that will probably do the job right there. Probably. Almost. As soon as I say that, I go, oh, nope, not quite. Not quite. Hang on. I want to match this color, this lighter color. So this is not how to paint a highly variegated object. This is just how to draw. This is just how to draw stuff, right? Right? Which, if you're a painter, that's a pretty important job. Just painting stuff, drawing it, getting the drawing right. So I've just shrunk her hand down a little bit. Let me take a look. Oh, I just missed a comment. Sorry, guys, whoever that was. Try to make it again. If I catch it out of the corner of my eye, I'll respond to you. Man, I still feel like that's a little bit large. I'm going to carve it down even a little bit more because I might be mistaken. But I'm going to try. Before I do that, let's do this. Let's come in here and smudge out my dark line. So I'm back to step number 1 on the hand. I'm all back to step number 1, which is mid-tone overall. I'm wiping out the dark details that I did just a few minutes ago because of changing the drawing. And I'm going to shorten her fingers just a little bit from this end as well. And especially make sure that this index finger that is pointing up is not too fat. It doesn't do to have fat index fingers on a bride. Brides don't want fat index fingers. Oh. Okay, I'm going to try that now. Let's see if my drawing comes out looking a little bit better. So again, I'm back to step number 1, which was mid-tone all over, and now step number 2, dark details, starting with some medium dark, not too dark, so that I can come back and do even more darker in a little while. Yeah, I think that does, the size of her hand does look better now. So I was saying earlier, does it work if you do it in a different order? Can you do darks first, then midtones, then lights? The answer is nope. Can you do light, then mid, then dark? No. Can you do, what's the other order? Anyway, I'm trying to make the point. No, the order is the secret formula, is the secret sauce. Midtone, sort of over everything, so to speak, generally speaking, whatever everything means. And then come back with with dark details and then light highlights. Okay, one thing that you should recognize in that formula is that it follows the very traditional, this is not a Dan Nelsonism, this is an art professorism. In other words, this traditional painting, it's darks first, lights last. Another way to say that is the human animal. We do not like seeing dark paint on top of light paint. Okay? If you can file that in your brain, you'll be a better artist. If you don't know that already, I just gave you one of the advanced hidden secrets of good painting. Stop putting dark paint on top of light paint. And then, Allie's good. Glad to hear it. Good to have you with us again. So we don't like to see dark paint on top of light paint. Now, if you're paying attention to me and you're not just whatever, brain turned off, you're going, that's ridiculous. What do you mean? Right? Are you arguing with me? If you're not arguing with me, then you're probably not paying attention, because of what you're trying to tell me is, but there's time, you have to do dark paint on. Yes, exactly. There you go. There absolutely are times when you have to do dark paint on top of light. Glad you're paying attention. But let me repeat myself. We, human animals, no, I say it that way because I'm trying to get you to see the point that this is not like a matter of opinion or taste. It is a matter of opinion, but it's, in my opinion, it's not a matter of taste. Well, some people I like seeing dark paint on top of light. Nope, you don't. And if you're arguing with me, you're just being a troll. Um, but there are times when you have to do, like I'm doing right now, I'm doing dark paint on top of light, right? Correct. But therefore, there's a there's something to fix what I'm doing right. What I'm doing right now is breaking the rules. I'm putting dark paint on top of light. That's against the rules, right? So hang on just a minute. I'm going to follow up by doing light paint adjacent to, next to, and sometimes on top of this dark paint. And then we're all happy again. Then our eyeballs go, whew, okay, everything's okay. I was scared for a minute there. I was afraid of irritating me. This is your brain talking to you. But once we do the come back and do the light on top of this dark, then we're all happy. Okay, so I think I'm done with the darks. I'm going to keep that brush with that paint on it just in case I need to come back to it. And let's now go to a light color. And I'm going to do the light the same way. I'm going to start with a medium light first and then come back and do a very high highlight after that. So first, a medium, like about a 3 value on a 10 scale, value scale. Look at all this fussy. Again, I keep saying to you guys, I would like to know what John Singer Sargent, he probably would just never let himself get in this predicament of having to do a portrait so small. But on the other hand, if he did, I'm sure he would do 1,000 times better than I'm doing, whatever that means. And I'd like to know how he would do it. Because how do you paint? Hey, John, thanks, man. Good to have you. Have a good night's sleep. It is kind of fun, this new internet world, isn't it? I have friends all around the world. Australia, New Zealand, had one from Finland a little while ago. As you can see, I don't have huge numbers of people watching, which I would like to fix, but I don't know how. But I certainly enjoy the interactions that I have with those who do watch. So that's highlight number 1. Now I'm going to try to do this in just two levels, layers, and then extreme highlight, if you will. So I'm mixing up a not white, but very, very pale, actually very pale flesh tone. Okay, so there's a point of light right up here at the top of her wrist that I kind of like. And then there's a couple lights there. The real energy happens here on her fingers. Her knuckle, this knuckle, and this finger. There, this finger. See, so when I've come back and painted the light paint next to, right up next to, adjacent to the dark paint, then all is well. And again, that's just one application of the universal principle of darks first, lights last. Okay, now that I'm done, there's some things happening here that I'm not that crazy about. So in a way you could say, whoops, I blew it, missed it, don't like it. But it's an easy fix. The answer is I've got too much contrast and on this hand. The darks are too dark. They didn't look too dark, but now that I've done the highlights, they do look too dark. So I'm going to come in here and with a fine brush, almost too fine actually, I'm going to redo my darks lighter. Okay, are you with me? Hey, Mark. Bonus for doing the night shift. Bless you, man. Thank you. Good to have you here. Have a good night's sleep when you get back. Okay, so I'm just lightening up the darks because there's too much contrast. So that's what you call, in the art business, a screw up. That's what you call a mistake. Thank goodness it's a fairly easily fixed mistake. So if you will, I'm off book. Now I'm off I'm off the formula. Now it's just, okay, just fix it, make it look good. Anytime you're putting light paint on top of darker, you're safe and it's going to look good. The scary, difficult part comes when you find yourself having to put dark paint on top of light. And man, I am serious as I can be. If you don't know that formula, I can't tell you how many paintings I look at, like when I'm judging a show or at our painters forum, and I usually don't say anything because if I talked every time I saw something, I'd just talk too much. So, but you do not want to put dark paint on top of light. And any time that you do have to do that, because of course there are times when you have to do that, then you follow up with light paint next to the dark. Carving her finger down a little bit here again. And I think I might even just take a moment. I was going to say take a moment and fuzz up this hand a little bit. It's entirely too fussy, too fastidiously drawn, too carefully drawn. Overworked is the word, right? And one of the things you can sometimes do with an overworked passage is just mess up a little bit. Right now I'm coming back and doing the light highlights that I lost when I fudged up her dark tones. That makes it so the darks were too dark, and now I've come back and lightened them, and it's working quite a bit better. Or I'll say it again. One of the teachers online that I've enjoyed immensely is Mark Carder, Carder, Mark Carder, and he makes this point very well and very strongly that watch out for over contrast. Our natural tendency as painters is to make our painting more contrasty, more punchy than the subject. And he says, make a sign, put it on your easel. And the sign says, is my painting more contrasty? I'm not sure that's the word he used, but that's what he meant. Is my painting more contrasty than my reference, in this case, reference photo? And if it is, fix it. And I actually did that for a while. I had that sign, little post-it note on my easel for a while. I think I've learned the lesson. Okay, I'm going to come in here, and this is a little bit like Mark Carter. I'm going to do some correct. The three-step formula for rendering a highly variegated subject matter, that three-step formula is done. You saw it. It was mid-tone first, kind of universal mid-tone, dark details, and finally light details. Got it? What I'm doing right now is just doing some color correction. And if you were with me the other day, I talked quite a bit about how light infuses human flesh. Light infuses skin, not confuses, infuses skin. So whenever there's light hitting, well, I'll do a little bit right now. You see there's I don't know. I mean, the classic case is his ear, but his ear's already done. Wherever light hits flesh, the light goes into the flesh and causes it to glow, and it glows red. So right next to any highlight, there's highlights on her fingers, and right next to the highlight, before it goes to shadow, there's a red zone. And that's what I'm painting right now. I just painted red zone on her fingers. We do just a tiny bit more on this index finger right up here before it goes to shadow. So if you learn that principle, you'll begin to see it better and go, oh yeah, wow, there it is. There it is, light infusing. We see it on the bridge of her nose. We see it on her cheek. We see it most in his ear. I've got a little bit of this. I could do some right here. A little bit dark. Hang on. I don't want to mess up his face because I'm quite happy with it as it is. A little bit of color. Not too bad. By the way, one of the real challenges, Mark Carter would have a cow if he saw me doing this. One of the real challenges of this particular painting is I am not following the color of the photograph. I'm having to make up color because I am quite unhappy with the color of the photograph. So that's not fun. It's a whole lot easier if you can obey what your eyes are seeing, and if you can just do the color that's already there on the photograph. But I can't do that here because the color in the photograph is not ideal. So then you just have to know what color flesh tone is, because you can't quite believe your eyes. Definitely not an ideal situation. Once again, I'm coming right at the moment. I am back to the formula. I'm doing light highlights. So again, the formula is midtone over everything, then dark details, then light details. So I'm coming back and revisiting the light details into that process. And while I'm up here with a brush with light on it, I'm going to try to fuzz this line, because I don't want that to be razor sharp. Another easy mistake that artists tend to make. They over sharpen everything. I actually want to get a small brush, and I'd come in here and just fuzz that a little bit. Okay? So that's another topic I just got into, by the way, soft edges. And now that I did that soft edge, I lost some of the highlight. So I'm just going to, again, with this bigger brush, with this bristle brush, come in here and make sure it's light enough, but I want to keep it soft. I want to keep that edge soft. Especially anytime that you're painting a human being and her hand is round, right? Everything on a human is round. It's round. It's going away from us like this. So if you make the edge soft, it looks more like it's receding away from us. It doesn't look like a razor sharp. Razor sharp edges are usually a mistake. Really, really. Easy for a painting to have too many hard edges. Almost impossible for a painting to have too many hard edges. Almost. Just learn that rule and then guard yourself. Not too many hard. So I'm coming back here, redefining the top of this hand, because now I've got plenty of fuzz but no definition. So, right? It's kind of a balancing act between just enough fuzz and just, yeah, that's better. Again, I don't know how well you can see that, but I just fuzzed that edge. I learned this years and years ago, well, from a good teacher, but I was with the teacher, I was doing a very copy, brush stroke for brush stroke, basically copy of a Bouguereau painting. And it hangs upstairs in my hallway. I've shown it to you in the past. It is, I say it sounds like I'm being funny, and I am to say it I'm being funny, but it's true. It is a slight improvement on the Bouguereau painting. Now, partly because, of course, his painting has had 110 years to have some oxidization of the colors. So, of course, my painting doesn't have that. But also, his face in this particular painting is just a little bit weird. The eyes are just, of course, is fabulous. But point is, I learned this soft edge trick by doing that Bouguereau. And I've heard it elsewhere, but that really sunk in. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on this girl's arm. Here's my photograph, right? And you can see the arm is in reality wider than that. Now, I don't have to make the painting as wide as literal. This is a very slight girl. Both of them are very, ideally shaped, very thin, and so forth. So it's not like I have to cheat on this. But when you're doing a portrait, let me let you see my face. When you're doing a portrait, you have your hand on a dial. And the question is, how far do you turn that dial? The dial moves from real to ideal. Are you with me? And I would say, in my opinion, you always, now, unless you're a modern artist trying to paint ugly, I'm not even on that planet. I'm talking beautiful. You turn the dial from real to ideal. Now, it doesn't mean you do crazy things like, fix their nose, remove their warts, stuff like that. John Singer Sargent would be my my ideal here. There's one of his most famous portraits. I think the woman is like 9 heads tall or 10 heads tall, some ridiculous thing. But it's gorgeous. The question is, how far do you turn it? How far do you want to go? A little bit ideal, because I'm not painting a photograph. I'm painting a painting, which means a painting shows the ideal, not the real. A photograph is real. Here's a photograph, okay? But it's a real fine balance. Okay, but before I make her arm slightly wider, there's some old paint, and I don't know if it's acrylic or oil, but there's a little bump right here in her flesh, in this flesh tone that is not pleasant. I showed you this trick the other day. I want to show it to you again. I have here an X-Acto knife with a curved blade. Very important that it's a curved blade. You cannot do this with a straight. Now the bad news here is if it turns out it's a bump in the canvas. That's not fun when that happens, because there's nothing you can do about it. But I want to, that was not a bump in the canvas. It was paint. And so I've just shaved off that little bump, so now I'm free to make the arm go a little bit wider that way without having the bad bump in it. Does that make sense? So again, the secret there is the curved blade. By the way, while I'm at it, an etching tool that you use for scratchboard. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Scratchboard scratcher also works very well for that same exact function. But before I get to where I'm going to tackle their hands. And here's a challenge. I don't know if you can see their hands. Let me bring it up here, up close. Here was, and it's out of focus because it was capturing blur movement. I don't want blurred movement. I don't like this color, and I don't like this position. In this, the groom has his fingers straightened out, which is cute. I mean, it's kind of a nice photograph, but I don't want it for a painting because it makes it look like I copied a photograph, which I did, but I don't want it to look like it. That looks like a spur of the moment. It's a cute photograph to have his hands like that. But I'm not painting the real, I'm painting the ideal. So I'm going to fold his fingers down normal, if you will. So here we go again. And I won't keep you around for this whole process, but here we go again. How to paint a highly complex, variegated object. In this case, their other hands. The answer is, here we go, with me, mid-tone all over. Then you want to try to make sure the drawing is correct. And here I can't look at the photograph because I'm not going by the photograph. So I'm going on what's filed away in my memory bank. While I'm at it, I'll get her arm a little bit wider. I'm going based on what I've learned about human anatomy from all my years of practice and study. Okay? That's probably wide enough for her arm. Now let me triple check and see if her elbow goes low enough. I have a feeling it looks great, but I have a feeling it's like a 1/16 of an inch too short. Yeah, that's the kind of dimensions that we're talking about here. So I'm going to lengthen her elbow just a tiny bit. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay, that's step 1. Then step 2, now you can say it with me. Say it in your sleep. Step 2 is dark details. Again, I'm going to start with medium dark. Not as dark as I can get. Definitely not black. Oh, speaking of black, everybody knows this old adage, old art professor adage, don't use black, right? Everybody knows that, right? Okay, now it's time to grow up a little bit as an artist. I'm saying this because you're looking at it right here. There's a better understanding. What the real professors, now the reason they say that is because they can't go around and talk to every student with every brush stroke. So they have to, I, myself included, have to throw out these generalisms, generalities, right? The generalities, generally speaking, yes, don't use black. But literally speaking, here's what that expression should be. The expression should be, don't abuse black. Don't misuse black. That's the truth. And the reason professors, myself included, say don't use black is because too many beginners misuse it. When they see something dark, they go to black to make it darker. And in doing so, they kill color. So that's why you want to get students away from using black. But the truth is, there are some colors that need killing. I had a student one time say, "Which ones?" No, 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 no. I don't mean like here's a list of colors that need to be killed. No, it's all painting with your eye. You always paint with your eyes. So, but in the painting. Okay, so in this particular painting, in fact, I do a lot of weddings, so I do a lot of grooms. I do a lot of grooms wearing black tuxes. And I have discovered most of this is chroma black. That's the name, not out of the tube, but I just made it by oxide red and ultramarine blue. That was what made this black. But it's just not black enough. So before I finish, I'm going to come in with some black, ivory black out of the tube, and not plaster, but just a little here, little there, little here, little there. So there you go. For some of you, it's time to grow up past the simpleton adages that your professors gave you. Don't use black. And graduate to, no, 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 don't abuse black. That's what they really meant to say. End of sermon number. Which sermon number was that? Okay, so now I'm drawing his pinky, then her pinky, then his ring finger, then her ring finger. I should make sure I get rings on these hands. Then his middle finger, then her middle finger, and his index finger we can't see, and her index finger is this one right here that points out. Whoops, am I zoomed in? It's almost. This is her index finger that sticks out over here. So she should now have 4 fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bingo, got it. And he has 4 fingers, but you can't see them all. Pinky, rings fingers a little bit fat. Let's skinny that down a little bit. Middle finger and index finger out of sight. But this is his thumb that sticks up here. And again, dang, this is finicky painting. There's a part of me, okay, wait. There's a part of me that does enjoy this. It's the part of many of us who get a kick out of doing super realism, right? And there's way too much of this on the internet, in my opinion, confusing people, making people think that super realism is all that. Everybody should do some at least one photorealistic painting or drawing in your life, at least one. Then frame it, put it on the wall and say, there, I did it, I'm done. This is my opinion. My opinion is right, but it is my opinion. I'm going to do a little bit more mid-dark before I go on to the lights. Don't get stuck in that hyper-realistic trap. When you do hyper-realism, we all get a kick out of it. We do, myself included. When I look at a hyper-realistic, online, you see it all the time these days. You see a drawing and they'll say something like 600 hours. Took me 600 hours to draw this human eyeball, okay? Here's what our brain does. Our brain goes, wow. That wow at 600 hours, wow at the detail, wow at the precision, wow at the patience of the artist, wow at the similitude, like, dang, it looks exactly. Are you with me? We do wow at all those things. Here's what I don't know if you're noticing, here's what we're not wowing. It is not moving our souls. I'm exaggerating slightly to make the point. We're not getting an aesthetic buzz. We're getting a wow buzz, what I call an industrial buzz. We're impressed by the industry of the artist. Wow. Can you believe they did that? Are you with me? I'm absolutely convinced that is the main, and that is not an aesthetic buzz. In other words, a real good painting can literally make you cry. Now, I know all the chemistry, all the moment has to be right and so on. By the way, it's a little embarrassing to admit this, but this literally happened to me about a year ago. I was for some reason, I wasn't even looking at the real painting. I was looking either on my computer or on my phone, and I was flipping through Rembrandt portraits, not self-portraits, just portraits. And all of a sudden, this one image of a Rembrandt portrait of an old woman came up. And it's not because it was an old woman. It didn't remind me of my mother. It wasn't sentimental. It was line, shape, color, composition, value, expression, and similitude. And literally tears came to my eyes. That's kind of a little bit embarrassing to admit that. Are you with me? But it's true. It is true. And in my opinion, you don't really get that. You don't get that was an aesthetic response, that was an aesthetic buzz, not an industrial buzz. An industrial buzz, by that I mean we get a buzz at the industry of the artist. Like, wow, look at how much work they did. Okay? But don't confuse that with an aesthetic buzz that, I mean, again, I'm speaking too flippantly, that moves your soul. Doesn't take you to a transcendent place. You go, dang, that's amazing. But it doesn't buckle your knees and make you cry. And again, I'm exaggerating slightly just to make the point. I hope you're getting the point. Okay, just about done with these hands. It'd be nice if I can I hope they're the right size. I haven't sat back really and taken a good hard look. So, yeah, I think they are. I think they are. Whew. There's a difference between, by the way, stepping back and getting a good hard look and a hard, good, careful look while you're painting. You can't do both at the same time. I was doing the hard look while we're painting look, but I was not doing a step back. Little bit of highlight, and I can't get really any of this from the photograph because the photograph does not have this. It's both out of focus and changing of hands, both. What I can get from the photograph is a sense of how much is, and the answer is quite a bit. And you know what? The same thing just happened. This is kind of embarrassing. The same thing just happened on the last one. So now that I've got the highlights in there, I realize that my darks are too dark. There's a lesson for me in there somewhere. I am overdoing my darks because I'm not realizing, after I get the highlights in there, how dark. So the good news is I want these fingers to fade to red anyway, more than they do, because of the glow, the infusion of light into human flesh. So anytime there's a bright light hitting human flesh, right next to the highlight, there will be red glow. So maybe when I just come back and do that glow, I will succeed in diminishing the over intensity that I here. So yeah, that's almost got it all taken care of. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Okay. There's only one part of that bothers me a little bit, and that's the underside of her. Can you believe how I'm holding this brush? Okay, I think that's good enough. I can lighten this a little bit again. This would certainly be easier if I had a photograph to go by, but I think I'm plenty close enough. I'm going to smear right now. Yeah. There. That's probably good enough for this particular broadcast. I had people falling asleep and falling off, going off to other places, which I don't blame them. Because this is not exactly rock and roll. I often laugh at how many people happen to see that I'm broadcasting. They don't know what I'm doing, and they come on and go, man, this stuff's boring. It's only us weird artists that get a kick out of this, right? So sorry about all you non-artists. At least now you know how the other half lives, how artists really work. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye right there and finish her arm, and then actually finish the rest of the painting. Hopefully this afternoon. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that was entertaining and instructive. Both. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.